As we finally reach my top 5 favorite movies of 2014, we kick it off with my third favorite anime movie of the year.
And my fifth favorite movie of 2014 is Big Hero 6. Probably the greatest Walt Disney Animation Studios movie in a long time. It's not as great as Bolt, but it's better than both Hercules and Meet the Robinsons. All four of those movies are the only good of these so far 54 anime movies in the Disney canon, in my opinion. Based on the lesser known Marvel Comics property, the movie is obviously more Disney than Marvel. It has some sweet animation, a nice voice cast, a good story, some good 3D, realistic emotional moments, and it makes me just want to give Baymax a big squishy hug. I mean, how can you not love my buddy Baymax? Another main thing to point out about the movie is the moral on the consequences of revenge. Because of this having both a Marvel feeling and an anime movie feeling, you could compare the movie's revenge story on the Marvel superhero side with Spider-Man 3 and the big studio animation side with Kung Fu Panda 2. What all three movies have in common is that they teach us a warning about what vendetta can do to a man and to let go of the past. So if this movie does have a sequel coming, it'll be my second only Marvel movie franchise I'll ever love. My all-time favorite is another more on that later topic, but all I can say is that Big Hero 6 is the best of both worlds for Disney animation and Marvel Comics.
Also, if you haven't seen the movie and plan on going to, please stay for the end credits. Aside from the awesome theme song called Immortals from one of my favorite bands, Fall Out Boy, there was a post-credit scene that will surprise the shit out of you. And if you miss it, you're a fucking idiot. Anyway, on to my second favorite anime movie of the year.
Taking the number 4 spot is How to Train Your Dragon 2. The first How to Train Your Dragon movie was one of DreamWorks Animation's greatest movies ever made, and 4 years later we finally have a sequel. And that sequel is filled with stunning fantasy animation, amazing 3D, some really funny humor, emotional scenes, human villains instead of just dragons like in the first movie, and an incredible voice cast upgrade with Kit Harington from Game of Thrones, Kate Blanchett, and Digimon Hansu. Aside from being one of the studio's best sequels ever, there are questions about the franchise as a whole, like, are Drago Bloodfist and his Bewildered Beast still alive after their defeat? Plus, which of the first two movies is better? While it's definitely hard to answer both questions for now, this movie will overall leave people like me anticipated for How to Train Your Dragon 3.
Fun fact, the third Dragons movie was originally to come out on June 17th, 2016 with Pixar's Finding Dory. So obviously one of the two had to pick another date. It was no surprise that DWA postponed Part 3 of the franchise to June 9th, 2017. The only surprise was the studio's reason to postpone. It wasn't because of Pixar, but because they realized how long it takes to make movies like this. Seriously? You guys just realized that, like, now? Moving on, we've reached the top 3, and we're leaving the 8 out of 10 range for the 9 out of 10 range with
My third favorite movie of the year, known as Hercules. Apparently it's less as awesome as I had hoped. Why? Because for some reason, Zeus and Hades make no appearance, and the film flopped at the box office, hurting the chances of Dwayne Johnson getting his own franchise. However, the 3D was good, The Rock literally rocked. John Hurt and Ralph Fiennes' brother Joseph make menacing villains, which makes me suspect that Joseph must be following in his older brother's footsteps by playing villains, and the movie is an overall fun experience. Plus, I really enjoyed Ingrid Bolzo-Berto's performance. Seriously, she went from an evil, scary, gray-skinned, blue-haired, poison dart frog force-feeding witch credited as Horn Witch in Hansel Grand Witch Hunters to a sexy and muscular warrior named Atalanta in this movie. Put all that together with a hilarious Ian McShane, other good performances, great action and visual effects, and Araya Shike's bare ass, and you got a Hercules movie that gives earlier 2014's The Legend of Hercules the finger, and even improving on the classic animated Disney musical version from 1997. In conclusion, if you're a hater of the reboot Titans franchise, which I'm not, and are looking for an awesome take on the Son of Zeus, then you're at the right place. This is definitely a great conclusion to my summer 2014 blockbuster season.
But one thing to point out, like Noah, my request to Paramount is to make a sequel. I mean, if they do make a sequel, then why not make one about Zeus and Hades clashing with each other Cause what's a Greek myth movie without that? Now, let's move on to my, and well, pretty much everybody else's favorite anime movie of the year.
And taking the number 2 spot on my list is The Lego Movie. Before this, movies based on toys sucked, especially from Hasbro. So I didn't expect much from a crazy idea like this, but it really exceeded my expectations like crazy. The story and the morals are very clever, the animation is something we haven't seen before, the voice cast was impressive, the great directing duo of Phil Lord and Chris Miller worked really hard to make this movie a reality, and the humor is crazy. Of course, there are LEGO version appearances of stuff I don't care about, like DC superheroes, Michelangelo from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and Gandalf from the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit trilogies. But aside from the obvious LEGO version appearances of Abraham Lincoln, William Shakespeare, the Statue of Liberty, and Shaq O'Neal and the 2002 NBA All-Stars, the LEGO version appearances that really had me in the audience surprised and laughing like crazy were Dumbledore from Harry Potter, who sounded like a weird pussy, and Milhouse from The Simpsons, who didn't say anything at all. And there was a pretty funny Star Wars moment. However, if all of those characters from different franchises can appear in this movie, why couldn't we get a Lego SpongeBob or a Lego Jack Sparrow or etc.? Plus, if Lego Dumbledore is there, why not a Lego Harry Potter? Anyway, at least there were cute supporting characters like Benny, aka the 1980-something space guy, and Unikitty, but the character who really stole the show was Morgan Freeman's character, Vitruvius. He was so funny that he even tossed the villainous characters voiced by the funny Will Ferrell and the action-packed Liam Neeson to the curb. Well, not literally, but here's a fun fact on the voice cast. Aside from Nick Offerman providing the voice of Metalbeard, the LEGO versions of Superman and Green Lantern were both voiced by Channing Tatum and Jonah Hill. All three actors and the directing duo of Phil and Chris are from the Jump Street franchise, and for LEGO Superman slash Jenko to be annoyed by LEGO Green Lantern slash Smith, how can this Jump Street reunion be more hilarious? Those scenes were just so funny that it's obviously a better animated Jump Street reunion than the Book of Life. Though, what makes this movie even better is the unexpected twists. Well, there are 3 of them. I won't give them away, but they are crazy and beyond what we all saw in the trailers and commercials. When you get closer to the end of a movie, it kind of feels like the Toy Story franchise, but you'll understand what I'm talking about when you see it. Overall, the LEGO movie is insane and fun. If you haven't seen this movie yet and plan on doing so at some point, you are in for a surprise of your life. Not only was it the first great movie of 2014, but also the best anime movie of a whole fucking year. So remember, kids, everything isn't awesome, but this movie literally is awesome.
Judging by the 96% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, this movie will obviously win the Academy Award for Best Anime Feature this year, I guarantee it. And some more good news for LEGO movie fans, there are 2 spin-offs and a sequel in the works. The first spin-off based on the Ninjago brand comes out on September 23rd, 2016. The second spin-off based on Will Arnett's egotistical and sarcastic LEGO Batman character comes out on May 26, 2017. And then the actual sequel to the LEGO movie comes out on May 25th, 2018. Though the release dates could change, so you never know. Okay, so now it is time for me to announce my number 1 favorite movie of the year. My numero uno.
My favorite movie of 2014 is The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Half of the critics and moviegoers around the world don't know shit once again, as they made this the worst reviewed and lowest grossing movie in Sony's Spider-Man saga. I mean, there were a few flaws, including Shailene Woodley's take on Mary Jane Watson being cut from the film that we will never see, scenes from the trailers that aren't shown in the actual movie, Uncle Ben and Flash Thompson not appearing even though they were confirmed earlier to reprise their roles, our hero is still not find Uncle Ben's killer, and including a promotional X-Men clip in the end credits instead of an actual post-credits scene over some fucking deal between Mark Webb and Fox. Okay, that X-Men scene was just for the theatrical release and not for home video, but I was still not happy about it. However, I forgive and forget those flaws and the flaws made in the last movie. Why? The intense, action-packed, and dark scenes got my legs wobbly, the 3D was a little better, and the soundtrack brought me back to the good old days of the original trilogy. If not the score, And I'm referring to Alicia Keys and Kendrick Lamar's It's On Again, which reminds us Spidey fans of what's to come. Let's not also forget the incredible acting, but most of that praise from me is going to the villains. Jamie Foxx's performance as someone who is as disrespected as Electro is incredible, Paul Giamatti as the Rhino is hilarious, and Dane DeHaan's performance as Harry Osborn and eventually the Green Goblin is so creepy and memorizing that he definitely reminds me of Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin from the original movie. With more Spidey stories to tell, my faith has been restored. Overall, The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is just as amazing as the first two chapters in Tobey Maguire and Sam Raimi's trilogy, and is the best movie of 2014.
However, despite all I have just said, I have a huge problem with the Spider-Man film franchise. Rumors and leaked Sony emails have suggested that fans of the stupid Marvel Cinematic Universe will get their wish by having the rights back to Marvel Studios, but holy fuck, that better not happen. I hate the MCU and I know Spidey was part of the Avengers in the comics, but this is the movie franchise version of a web-swinger we're talking about here. To have him back in Marvel with Sony's Spider-Man Cinematic Universe plans scrapped and Andrew Garfield being booed from the role is all just unjust and morally wrong. So come sometime in January, the studio will hold a Spidey Summit to discuss Spidey's movie future after TASM2's so-called underperformance. So I may make a video commenting on the results right after the summit, whenever it is. But do you all know what I want for Spidey's future? Keep the updated schedule announced at the end of last July, with the Sinister Six scheduled for November 2016, followed by the Female Center spin-off and the Venom spin-off for possible release in 2017, the Amazing Spider-Man 3 for 2018, the Amazing Spider-Man 4 for whenever after that, and a spin-off that I personally want to see happen, a movie based on Morbius the Living Vampire. He's one of my favorite Spidey villains who have yet to be seen in a motion picture, and he even had his own short-lived comic book series where he's the anti-hero. So if Sony were to make a movie about an anti-hero Morbius, then I want to audition for the role. And even if I don't get it, then Johnny Depp should get the role. But that's just me. My point is that Sony should never give up or even lend Spider-Man to Marvel Studios. Seriously, I know this is my opinion, but the Marvel Cinematic Universe sucks. Anyway, that concludes my top 20 best movies of 2014 video. Hope you all had fun watching. Hit the like button if you enjoyed yourselves, comment on whether or not you agree with my picks, and hit the subscribe button if you are not subscribed. And if you enjoyed this video and want to see more, check out my sequel video where I discuss my top 20 most anticipated movies of 2015. Until then, hope you all had a Merry Christmas and have a Happy New Year.